Welcome back to the Stepbrothers. I'm Wesley Clark here with Andrew Hyden, and we are in the middle of what is maybe the best part of sports throughout the year. Obviously you can argue college football. That's what I would, but March Madness, we are in the round of 32. All these games, a lot of these games have been great. High Point had a good season, but right now St. John's is trying to beat Kansas. It's just been great overall. Andrew, are you enjoying these games like I am?
Absolutely. My brain, I think, is rotting this weekend. I've just been on my couch the entire time. No thoughts going through my head, really. Um, on your take there, I will agree. I think the regular season in college football is unbeaten, but in terms of like postseason, not even a debate. March Madness, just the layout of it is so elite. The structure, the timing, it's just
It it's better when you're in class and you're just
hmm
watching games in class. Obviously, I don't get to do that anymore. But it's so great because I have the March Madness app, and you just have the multi-view, and you're watching three games at once, or one game's a blowout. Okay, go to the game that just started. So it's nice that there's a lot of overlap. But you get that in the round of 32, and the first round, and then of course
hmm
the downside of moving on a tournament. Well, there's just better matchups. So better games. These top
right, right,
teams
right.
going at it. So
There's
that's
less
the
games as you move forward, but they're usually better
yep.
games.
Yeah.
So
So all
yeah,
right. So
it's, uh,
obviously Ohio State season is over. Diebler got his chance at March Madness. All thanks to Bruce Thorne. I'm very glad that he got in the tournament. Not the way that I wanted him to play in that TCU game, Andrew. He only scored 10 points and he played 40 minutes. He did. He played the entire game again. The bench, Gabe Cups scored 3 points. It was a major issue for Ohio State. They were down by 15 against TCU. The bench couldn't score. I know they play the majority of their starters, but come on, when the bench is in, you got to score more than 3 points, and you essentially lose that game once you're at halftime and you're down by 15. They made their way back. They eventually took the lead, but it's just tough when you have so much momentum. The other team's going to score at some point, and it's tough to come back from that and win a game.
yeah, you can't put yourself in a hole like that. Um, I mean, great effort to come back and make it a game. I mean, TCU is a team that has some weird losses. Like they lost to New Orleans at the start of the year. Um, they have had some really low lows, but they've beat some really good teams. They beat Florida. They beat Iowa State. Almost beat Michigan early on this year. So yeah, that's definitely an underrated team. I mean, they gave Duke a good run for most of that game, but yeah, I think that's been an issue for Ohio State. Really, every time I've seen them, like there's just a drop off between their best three and the rest of their roster. Like when you have Bruce Thornton out there, you feel a lot different than when you have Gabe Cupps out there. I would assume if I were a fan
Yeah,
of Ohio State, but like it's just yeah, and some of the offense, like I think coming in, Ohio State was one of the hottest offensive teams in the country. So, like analytically going into the tournament, they just didn't really have that same juice. It looked like Bruce Thornton wasn't really a factor as much. Not even because he was like just missing a lot of shots, but he just kind of wasn't. Didn't seem very aggressive. I don't know. Let me know
he
what you
was
think on
not.
that.
I mean, he actually. I don't know the top of my head how many shots he had, but I think at halftime 5. He had like 5 shots at halftime. Had
Yeah,
5 points. It was in the part. I think 2 of those came from free throws. So and Mobley, he went 3 for 11, and I have a major issue, and I know you have noticed this when Ohio State played Michigan. This dude chucks up logo shots,
yeah.
and
He
you're
takes
down.
some questionable ones.
You're coming back from 50. He shot. They were down. I believe it was 55 to 52, and TCU was leading. They had come back, and he shoots a logo shot, dude. Like you're trying to come back from 15 points. You're not trying. You're not extending the lead and trying to change momentum. That shot, whether you make it, it's tied. So I'm not really sure why he shoots that type of shot in that situation, but he had done that several times throughout the year. I think he's a good player. He's a sophomore. He'll come back next year, but that was troubling to see. Bruce Thorne, obviously not the way he wanted to play his last collegiate game. Amir Bynum,
No.
who's a freshman, he's a solid player. So he had a good game. He
Yeah,
had
he's been
12.
coming along. He looks good.
Yes, and Derek Royal as well. The bigs played a phenomenal game. Good passes from the guards, and that's what how Ohio State was able to inch their way back into this game. But as a whole, not how Ohio State was really expected to play. People had actually since February 1st, they had the fourth best 3-point percentage
That's
shooting
right. Yeah, I saw
in the
that.
country, and they were terrible. I mean, it was just their defense, and they're just shooting. Like you said, they weren't very aggressive, especially with Bruce Thornton. So they lose TCU 66-64. I actually got to speak with Gary Williams, the ex Ohio State coach back in the 80s, and I asked him about what about this coaching situation moving forward, and he likes Jake Diebler moving forward. He thinks it's too quick to just because it's Diebler's first time at a head coach. I think
Definitely is now. I mean, now that he made the tournament.
yeah, I think that we talked about the pulse of the program last week.
Mm-hmm.
I think in this situation, Ohio State will keep him if they make the tournament next year. I think
Yeah.
if he doesn't make the tournament again, I do think he'll be gone. I mean, come on, there's 68 teams. You can't be an 11 seed minimum, and he wasn't able to do that for several years in a row. So Gary, he coached Ohio State for 3 years before he won a national championship at Maryland, and he had high props to say about Jake Diebler, mostly because of the experience. You're coaching a top program right out of the gate. You don't start at a Butler or a Marquette. You just have to fill in for Ohio State. So I can't say he's wrong there, but there's a ticking time bomb for every single coach. It's not if you get fired, is when you get fired, is
Yeah.
how it goes for head coaches across college football, college basketball, NFL. We see it all the time in professional sports. Guys getting fired, even if they win a championship.
Yeah, especially in this era, like time is one thing you don't have as a coach, right? With now you're expected to be able to turn things around in a hurry, especially at a program like Ohio State where there's been historical success. It's going to be a new challenge for Jake Diebler as well. I mean, he's going to have to build a roster going forward that doesn't revolve around Bruce Thornton, the all-time leading scorer. So it's going to look a lot different next year. Interested to see what that looks like. Obviously, until the portal opens, every roster in America is up in the air. But yeah, going to be interesting. I think that even if they miss the tournament, I don't think maybe they wouldn't have. My opinion is that they wouldn't have let him go. Maybe you feel differently about that. I don't know.
No, they were not letting him go.
Yeah, I'm not as close to the situation, but
They were
I
not
think that at
letting
least
Diebler
bought him a little bit. That last stretch of the Big Ten season bought him a little bit of belief from those around the program. That's what I think.
I think that given the situation that he was put in, he interim head coach, he has beaten Purdue 3 times in a row. His first head coaching job game, I should say, beat Purdue. That gave hypes up in Columbus. But no, I think this year was, that season was lost for a while after when they lost to Iowa. They roll. In fact, they had beat Iowa by a good chunk in the tournament. Now Iowa's having a pretty good run in the tournament when Ohio State's out of it.
Yeah, they're going to play later tonight as we're recording this.
I think, yeah, exactly. And I think that no matter what was happening this year, he was still going to have all of next year. Next year is going to determine Jake Diebler's fate in Columbus, no matter what happened this year. That was what I got from the people I know up there.
Yeah. I mean, now you got at least something to build off of. I will say, like, the biggest area of growth I think I saw was physicality. I vividly remember the first time that Michigan played Ohio State and the second time, which was early February, maybe. Like they just Ohio State just looked soft. Like their bigs just had no business with Michigan's bigs. They just didn't really fit that Big Ten mold. I didn't see that in the Big Ten tournament. I even didn't see that against TCU. I mean, I didn't think Ohio State was bad offensively.
The bigs weren't the problem.
TCU missed a lot of like layups and things like that, but they definitely made strides in that department. What do you think?
The bigs weren't the problem. at the end of
Yeah.
the season. I mean, it
Right.
was
Yeah. Yeah.
solely the guards. Bruce Thornton, I can't recall what game. I believe it was against Iowa. When they lost by 13. At the end of the season, when the season was so-called lost, Bruce Thornton didn't do anything, and that team was toast. Now you almost beat TCU, even though the guards had lost that game for you, on the backs of Bynum and uh, Royal. So those guys had double-digit points. Bynum
Mhm.
also had 9 rebounds. Props to the guards for the passes they made, but again, they were able to get open, and the guards is what kind of lost on those 3-point percentage shooting.
Yeah.
So that's it for Ohio State. I mean, we'll see what like you said, the roster's up in the air for each team. Gus Johnson made that comment about NIL. I don't know how true that is. And neither does he. He's just making that comment for no reason. But
Yeah.
we'll see what donors do for around Ohio State. I mean, if in terms of the mindset of a donor, if you're a Ohio State alum fan and you have money, you're like, damn, I don't really want to see this program losing anymore. So but then all of a sudden it's football season, and you're like,
Right.
wait a
It's a
minute,
tough. It's a tough balance. It's hard to be really good at both.
It is hard, and so that mindset might change once the football season's around. And I know there's comments in the air about Ohio State basketball expectations and viewership after the season. Of course, football. You're talking about the Ohio State is the largest football fan base in the country. It's 11 million. Notre Dame is 9, number 2. You're not going to have the same fan base, football and basketball. You don't have that. You don't have that with Michigan either. You don't have that with Virginia Tech. So it doesn't matter. So I don't know why that's floating in the air, but Ohio State will have some rebuilding to do.
Yeah,
and they have the
absolutely.
resources to get back to where they want to be.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, on the Michigan side of things, they had a much better weekend. Cruises to the Sweet 16. Played 3 really good halves of basketball outside of the first half against Howard. I don't know if you saw any of that.
That's what I was going to ask you about in a few minutes. Was
So
that?
yeah. So I couldn't even watch it because I was working, and I thought, hopefully this is probably the only game I'm going to have to miss for work. I think it's a 16 seed game. Hopefully no issues here. I go, I take a little bathroom break, go to check my phone, and Michigan is up by 4 at half. I'm thinking, oh no, especially after watching what the Siena and Duke game a little bit earlier before that. Yeah, fortunately I did get off early, which was not expected. And so I got to see most of the second half. Michigan ends up pulling away. Outside of that though, I mean, this was one of Michigan's best runs of basketball in the since losing LJ Cason, really probably since that Illinois game. They really looked like they returned to their identity, especially offensively. Their offensive efficiency looked like it has when Michigan's at its best this year. They scored 101, 95 points. Some quick math. What math is that? 196. That's the most since North Carolina in the first 2 rounds of the NCAA tournament. That's the most amount of total points scored since North Carolina in 2008. So offensively, I mean, they shot it 67%, nice from the floor against Howard, and then 56% from the floor against St. Louis, 46% from 3 against Howard, 48% from 3 against St. Louis, 10 or less turnovers in each game. Like, this was players era level of offense. And part of that, Dusty May talked about in his press conference, is that what Big Ten teams did a lot of the time towards the end of the season against Michigan is they wanted to slow them down. They wanted to play as low of a possession game as possible. Michigan likes to get out and run. They like to play fast. They don't like to run the whole shot clock down. Howard and St. Louis both want to play fast, especially St. Louis. They're like 4th in the nation in like offensive tempo, or like time, shortest amount of time before a shot in the shot clock. So that just played right into Michigan's hands, I think. Obviously, it also helps when you have multiple 7-footers and are one of the tallest teams in America against mid-major schools, and just better athletes overall. But what did you think? Did you watch? How much did you see?
I was able to watch the first half. What caught my
Really?
eye was those Howard guards.
Oh,
Those
Howard.
dudes can ball. They had 40 points. The two starters combined. One of them went 5 for 6
Yeah,
from
yeah.
the field. That was the reason
No,
why
they were.
they dropped the
Dude, they
game.
would not. Going back and watching some of the highlights, there was a stretch they went 11 of 12 from three in like part of that first half, which is just unreal because Howard is not like. I remember watching the first 4 game against UMBC. They weren't like they were clanking open threes. Like it wasn't like they were some hot shooting team. So that
No,
was
I know. Cam Gillis is one of their guards. He went 5 for
yeah,
6
yeah.
from 3-point and then 6 from 9 from the field. So those two guards had half the points. They had 40 points combined, and that's why they
Yeah.
dropped 80. I mean, they're good, and those are the type of guys who are probably you'll see on a team like Illinois, even Ohio State, that you could look at guys like that. That's what
Mhm.
happens. These guys go off in the tournament. They're freshman, sophomore, and then they end up at a high, a major school like Ohio State and Michigan. So you'll probably
Yeah.
see those two guys somewhere else next year. They were very good.
Yeah,
And
I actually I talked about this on TikTok where most of the time, or not most of the time, but a lot of the times when you watch mid majors and like March Madness, sometimes there's not like guys that can just go get a bucket. Like they're usually like really good shooters, right? Like Chase Johnston from High Point. There are guys like that who just like knock down threes,
yeah,
but none of them are like isolation, like beating Power 5 defenders off the dribble and just getting to their spot. Howard and St. Louis both had multiple players like that where I was like, these dudes actually are legitimately just like can score at a level that is, I mean, Michigan's one of the best defensive teams in the country. Like they're here. Like it doesn't look like they look comfortable. Like they can get to their spot. So that was impressive from both those teams.
no, yeah, for sure. I think whenever I watch Ohio Michigan, it's impossible not to watch Rudy Gale. I hate that dude. But
Roddy
he had
Gale.
Roddy Gale, whatever. But he had a solid game against
Yeah, yeah.
Howard.
So let's talk about that. People say in March Madness, guards win you games, right? Guards have to be able to step up, make plays, especially once you get to some of the later rounds against better defensive teams. Michigan has been criticized for that at times this year. Elliot Cadeau had a rough couple years at North Carolina. Michigan is known for their front court, obviously probably the best front court in the nation. But this weekend, Michigan's guards really stepped up. Namari Burnett was in double figures in both games. First time he's done that. First time he's had double figures in consecutive games since early January. Roddy Gale, like you said, had a really good game against Howard. Not as much against St. Louis, but we'll take it where we can get it. Trey McKinney also in double figures.
Which he does. He's a very streaky player.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, he last year, I don't know if you remember that Texas A&M game. He had 27 points just out of nowhere.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that led to people calling him March Roddy, tournament Roddy Gale. That's what we're all waiting on. Yeah, so he has moments where he'll just he can really go off like that. Other than that, pretty inconsistent. But yeah, Elliot Cadeau, like I just said, he had 9 assists and 1 turnover in that first game. Another 8 assists, only 2 turnovers in that second game. That's a 17-3 ratio in 2 games, which is awesome. And if they get that
Johnson, is that his name?
Morez Johnson?
Morez Johnson. Yeah, I mean he had a double against Howard. He also hit a 3.
Mm-hmm.
So he had 21 points.
8 for 8 from the field.
Yeah.
5th player in NCAA tournament history. I think it was the 5th, maybe the 6th, to ever have 20 or more points and 10 plus rebounds on 100% field goal shooting in a tournament game. So he really struggled. I think we talked about this. He really struggled in the Big Ten tournament last weekend. Good to see him coming back to form. Adai Mara was just an absolute problem. Not surprising when you consider the type of personnel that Howard and St. Louis have. Like they don't have a 7'3" guy like that who can defend that type of length and that type of skill and passing ability. But yeah, I mean that those shooting numbers, like I talked about earlier, that consistency from 3. If Michigan can make double-digit threes in tournament games, which they did in both those games, they're going to be a very tough team to stop, right? Because everyone knows their strength is their bigs, their front court. Teams start to collapse. They start to send extra bodies in the post. Guards, the Michigan's guards absolutely have to be able to knock down open shots when they're there. and they had no problem doing it this weekend. So
Yeah. Last thing I'll say, I in terms of Michigan, a little bit more comfortable how they're playing now than how they were in the end of the season after that
yes,
L to Purdue. Purdue's obviously, they have a chance to go on a run, and then Michigan will await Alabama and Texas Tech to play in Chicago.
yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, I want to talk about Yaxel Lendeborg again
yeah,
because I talked about it. Maybe I talked about it last week on here, but definitely on TikTok. There are times where in March Madness, your best player simply has to take over. Like I think about Walter Clayton last year on Florida, that game where they were down late to Texas Tech. I think they were down like 10 with a little over 2 minutes left. He just took over, hit some big shots. Your best player has to just be able to put the team on his back sometimes, even though the best thing about this Michigan team is probably that they don't have one given guy that they always go to on any given night, right? Axel Lindeborg is a first team All American and he doesn't even average 15 points a game. Like that speaks to the balance of scoring on this team. But he had 25, 6 rebounds, super efficient, 9 of 13 from the field. He had one of the best poster dunks I've ever seen, at least in a long time. Did you see that?
It was against
Maybe St. Louis.
Major, right? St. Louis,
St.
yes.
Louis. Yeah. It was nasty. But yeah, so that's kind of all my takes. But yeah, Michigan moving on. Like you said, going to play the winner of Texas Tech and Alabama. Got to stay hungry, but hopefully it looks like they might be playing their best ball at the right time. I know I was worried about that after last week against Purdue. Actually, really the entire Big Ten tournament, but maybe, Dusty May said maybe it's good to play against teams that aren't from your conference, right? They don't scout you all year. They don't know everything about you. You haven't played them multiple times. That could be a benefit. So before we're done, I want to just kind of talk about some overall bracket reactions. I know this is back-to-back years of a pretty chalky March Madness. Not a lot of upsets, dominant top teams. I think this year is I saw a stat, it's like in terms of scoring margin, it's like the most amount of games decided by 20 or more points ever, which I think says a lot. So what do you think about there? What do you think about that?
Well, I loved bringing the conversation into the new era of college sports. I do wonder why is it the last 2 years you're talking about the last 2 years have been the most transactional 2 season in college football and college basketball. So why is it NIL, the donors? I think it plays a part in it because guys they leave after freshman year. We just talked about these Howard guards, and after this year, they're going to head over to Ohio State and Michigan. So you're talking about it. It's paper thin for these schools like Miami, Ohio. They had a great season. I'm glad they are in. High Point is a good example of, they have a solid foundation, but a lot of these schools like Troy, they don't have the talent and they can't retain the talent like a guy like Fletcher McGee at Wofford, where he's just there 4 years for some reason, even though he could have played at a top 25 school immediately after his freshman year. He was one of the best 3-point shooters in the history of college basketball. It broke records in March Madness. So I think that has to do with it. Are Cinderella's done in March Madness? No, I don't think they're done because, you have a Texas who's 11 seed. They just upset Gonzaga.
Does that count?
I think, I made a joke the other day, is a Cinderella a school with less money than the school that they're playing? And I think it is, because does anyone actually care that Texas, who their players are driving Lamborghinis, beat Gonzaga? No, because those players probably are making more money. So Cinderella's done? I don't think so. I think every once in a while you have like an FAU, led by Dusty May a couple years ago. I still think, that's an anomaly making the Final Four, but going to the Elite Eight, you saw Siena almost beat Duke. I think it will happen still occasionally, but not as much as we've seen last 2 years.
Yeah, I'm hopeful. People point to the portal, like you said. I think more of an issue is not that the mid-major teams are worse, but maybe that the top crop of teams seems to be even better than normal. Arizona, Duke, and Michigan this year are all teams that would be standalone number one overall seeds, number one teams in the country. each have 3 losses or less. But this, especially on, I think on KenPom ratings, right? There's only been 8 teams, I think, going into this year, where teams have a 35 rating or higher going into the tournament. And this year, Arizona, Duke, and Michigan are all rated above that. So, I mean, you're talking about almost half that number that there's been in the entire history of KenPom all in one season. I think maybe part of that is the fact that you're able to recruit transfers who are seasoned guys already that you know exactly how they're going to fit in, and you have guys that are maybe more set in a role, if that makes sense. Guys that you're able to build a roster with more certainty rather than recruiting freshmen. But overall, I'm hopeful. I mean, the portal's been a thing for more than just the past 2 years. I think that's what people don't talk about always. Like, just 2 years ago, NC State was in the Final Four. It wasn't that long ago that St. Peter's was in the Elite Eight, right? Fairleigh Dickinson beat Purdue, right? So I
UMBC
think,
beating UVA. I mean, it's been recent.
yeah,
Now
that
the
was pre-portal,
landscape,
but still.
this exactly landscape has changed since these games. There's no reason why I wouldn't say the same reason why Indiana won the national championship. We're 24-year-olds who have had 4 years in college football, who are older than us, are the reason why you won a national championship. There's no difference in whether you're playing baseball, basketball, or football. These guys are seasoned, like you said, and that's the way to go. I mean, Michigan's starting lineup. None of them started at Michigan, did they? Maybe one.
No, none of them.
Yeah, exactly. It doesn't matter where you started.
And also, I mean, college football, I think is more certain that way. But when you have like one and dones in college basketball, right? Some of the best players aren't in college for very long, so it changes things a little bit there. But yeah, like you said, I mean, the best teams seem to have older guys with the most experience, unless you're Duke with like 7 McDonald's All-Americans on your roster, and then maybe
the entire Duke starting 5 started at Duke.
Yeah, and then maybe you have enough to overcome that. But yeah, like you said, only one double-digit seed. Back-to-back years this happened. Last year it was Arkansas as a 10 seed. This year it's Texas. Only one double-digit seed in the Sweet 16, which I think is.
And you look what school those are.
Right. Yeah, it's a good point. They're not like, they're talented teams that have beat good teams, and they just probably you have fumbled along the way once or another. But yeah, so I'll ask you this because I wrote this down. Or were you going to say something?
No, go ahead.
Would you rather? I know you're not. I know you're more of a football guy anyway. But would you rather see chaos in the first weekend? I'm talking multiple 15 seeds winning. Talking top teams go down, or would you rather the highest possible seeds, the best possible teams, be set up for matchups in later rounds?
No, I want to see chaos. I like it the way that we grew up, and St. Peter's and UMBC, and I'm blanking on who Purdue lost to.
Fairleigh Dickinson.
He's there. There you go. Middle Tennessee State beating MSU, or Roberts. They beat Ohio State a couple years ago. I'd rather have that happen than what we had last year, where the entire Final Four was 1 seeds. I don't really care about that. It was kind of
Final Four was so good, though.
It was good. I thought it was great. I just thought it was pretty. It was remarkable when you're gonna have to remind me of the teams, but when FAU was there, was it Auburn was in that mix? Maybe Texas Tech.
When FAU was there?
Yeah, when Dusty May was in the Final Four, who was in?
It was San Diego State, Miami, and UConn.
Yeah, and UConn ended up winning it. So, right? Is that the first year they went back to back?
Yeah. And none of those teams were 1 seeds.
Yes, I think the lowest was a 5 or 4.
UConn was a 4, I think.
I think I'd rather have that. The thing is, it's hard to say that, because obviously last year was fantastic between Florida and Houston. That was a great end of the game. And then you obviously UNC and Villanova was also, that buzzer beater a couple years back. I think we've had a good mix between 2010 and 2019. I thought that was good. Last year was all right. I mean, I was fine with it being chalked. I was hoping this year would be a little different, because Texas, to me, I don't care for.
Yeah. I mean, no 13, 14, 15, or 16 seed won this year, which is the first time that's ever happened in back-to-back years. Happened last year too. So
Well,
my thing is like I am not expecting the top dogs to go down, and maybe I don't want that to happen. Like if Iowa State or something was to lose, like somebody was to lose in the first round, I want to see like an Iowa State Michigan type of matchup. I want to see a UConn Duke matchup in the Elite Eight. But I feel like there just used to be more variability with the 3, 4, 5 seeds, right? You used to see more double-digit seeds in the Sweet 16. You used to see more chaos
to
there.
be honest with you, I still think we've always gotten that. It's always been Duke winning that, UConn winning the national championship, Wisconsin going to the Final Four. The first
Right,
round, yeah,
that's what I'm
these
saying.
the 15, the 16s, the 14s, the 12s, they get to the round of 32, but the ones, twos, and threes are still getting to the Elite Eight.
That's what I'm saying. Like that's how it's been. One seeds have always been the most likely by far to win a national championship. Like that, the top dogs always they're the top dogs for a reason. They usually find a way to make it through. But just the round of 64, even some of these like 8, 9, 7, 10 games, like it used to feel like these games are much more competitive. Like you wouldn't see St. Louis blow out Georgia by 40 or whatever it was.
Yeah.
Things like that.
The TCU game against Ohio State was the best 8 and 9.
Yeah. I mean, there were I will say this year, I think there were better
Iowa,
games
Clemson.
to watch than last year. Like Furman and UConn was a game for a little while. Utah State Villanova I thought was pretty good. Obviously Santa Clara Kentucky was wild. But
Wright
I'm
State.
trying to think. Wright State Virginia was a good game for a while. Yeah. But like I don't know. Just it feels like there's more.
It's top heavy.
There's less competitive games.
It's top heavy, and I think
Yeah.
that is the way it's been, the way it's going to be moving forward. I think that's just we're just going to have to deal with that because of the things we've talked about with transfer portal, NIL. I mean, once you get money involved, why would someone and you're going to have to remind me of his name, but at St. Petersburg, you played against him, Doug
Eater. Yeah.
He ended up getting a Buffalo Wild Wings NIL. He left. I mean, so would I. I mean, why am I going to play at a gym that fits the same amount as a high school? If I
I
can
mean, he
go,
ended up going to Bryant, which is like the same thing.
I mean, St. Petersburg was pretty poor, but
I mean,
he still got more money. It doesn't matter whether if I'm getting paid $5,000 and I'm getting 10. I'm leaving. Like
That's fair. And it's a very small sample size. I'll remind people, it's hard to say after just 2 years whether the landscape will have completely shifted, right? Like imagine Siena does beat Duke the other day. That's only a 6-point difference from that potentially happening. Are we having the same conversation? I think not, but it's only a 1-game difference, right? So,
the
I don't
last
think
comparing it to football. Last thing I will say about this before we wrap up, Indiana's off. They were terrible for years in football. In the way that the system has allowed Indiana to compete, which is good for them. They have Mark Cuban, who spent billionaire, able to spend money. When's the last time you saw a school win a national championship that either like Indiana wasn't full of seniors, full of money, or university like Georgia, Ohio State, Alabama? I mean, when's the last time you didn't see a top heavy team win a championship in football? Michigan, they're dominant in college football. Miami back in 2002. LSU, Florida. It's just the same teams over and over again.
Yeah, especially the last 3 Big Ten teams winning national championships in football. All those teams, ton of seniors, ton of guys going to the NFL.
Their rosters were $40 million each. Like it grows every single year. Michigan probably went every single year. Gets the price of a roster gets more expensive.
Oh, I
Michigan
guarantee you, Michigan's roster to go 9-3 in 2025 costs more than their national championship roster in 2023.
And Ohio State's roster last year, losing to Miami, was more expensive than having Junkins and Henderson, Will Howard. To me, it has been the same since we were little, and now in college and out of college. It's the same team, the same type of teams: Alabama, Georgia, Duke, Kansas, UConn. I don't. To me, there's not a lot has changed, whether
Yeah.
with NIL or not.
And you might be right. It might be that it is the same type of teams that are competing, but it's just for a different reason now, or maybe the reasons are more public.
That and it has given a handful of teams like an Indiana, like a Miami, to come back from being dirt to go into the national championship, and those two teams end up being the two teams in the championship. So things have changed. It's a ton, but I don't know. I mean, the same teams win.
Yeah. So anyway, our Cinderella's done. I don't think so, but I don't know. Kind of thing you have to look at like a trend, not 2 years in particular. We'll see next year. Next year could be absolute madness. And we've been pretty spoiled these past few years. I think I saw a TikTok about this that kind of reminded me like how crazy some recent March Madness runs have been. Right, the St. Peter's one, the FDU, even Florida Atlantic and San Diego State playing in the Final Four. Like that's unreal. So yeah, that's all I got. Unless anything you want to add?
No, yeah. I mean, obviously we like talking about Big Ten teams. Illinois playing well, Michigan obviously playing well, Purdue doing exactly what they did.
Big Ten not looking so fraudulent in this tournament, which is good.
Finally, Iowa is playing Florida right now. They're currently tied. We'll see how that gets early, but UCLA will go up against UConn, so hopefully they can get that win. But it's been so far so good for the Big Ten.
Yeah, game's in a couple hours as we're recording this, right?
Yep, be second last game of the night. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, that's it for me. Let us know who you got winning. How's your bracket doing? Mine sucks at Ohio State going.
Yeah, how's your bracket doing? I actually, before you wrap up, I want to add something. Through like 7 games on Thursday, I had every single game wrong, which I think is impressive.
It is impressive because they actually keep track of that. There's no more winless brackets. I know that came out, and there's two more perfect brackets, but one will be done after this Kansas St. John's game that is in the second half right now as we record this.
What do you mean? Well, it will be done.
Wait, what? I said two more perfect brackets. One will be done.
I got you.
After this Kansas game.
Yeah,
St. John's, because they split.
I got you.
And one of the perfect brackets has Michigan winning. I know that. So we'll see. But yeah, let us know what your bracket is. Mine's terrible compared to last year. That's what happens when we put Ohio State in the Final Four. But that's all right. But yeah, no, thanks for watching. And I guess next time we'll record, I believe we'll be in the Elite Eight.
Final Four will be set probably. Yeah,
something like that.
Because usually Friday, Saturday games on Sunday are like earlier.
Actually, yeah, we'll be previewing the Final Four.
Yep.
So, alrighty.
Hopefully, Michigan will be in it.
Yep. Yeah, we'll see what happens with the Big Ten and Michigan moving forward. But thank you for watching. And, go follow us on Twitter, TikTok, all that, and Instagram. We'll see you guys next week. Thank you.